Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to have secured this debate on the effect of media images on the body image of women and girls, a topic which has sparked a great deal of discussion over the past year, both in the media and among the public. Nowadays, you can't escape media images of impossibly beautiful people, whether on magazine covers, on billboards, or in newspapers. There is increasing pressure on people, especially women and girls, but increasingly on men and boys as well, to make themselves as beautiful as possible. Beauty itself seems to no longer be in the eye of the beholder. Instead of a wide range of different body shapes and sizes being presented, we instead are fed a restricted diet of one narrow ideal of beauty. The cult of ultra-thin is worshipped by those aspiring to look like the skinny models on the catwalks or the teeny-tiny celebrities in the magazines. Those in the public eye who commit the ultimate sin of eating and being a normal size are named and shamed with articles and photos documenting their fall from grace. Some people say this has always been the case, but someone like Marilyn Monroe would be called fat by today's standards, and even the fit and slender Cindy Crawford would look large in comparison to her size zero counterparts today. The skinny ideal is reinforced by the media. Go into a newsagent today, particularly in January, and the magazine headlines scream out the obsession with thinness. My fight for a new body. Diet special, how we got our amazing bikini bodies. Or, especially worrying, diet or die. All of these are headlines in magazines currently on sale. Increasingly, the images we see are not even real, as modern technology makes it easier than ever to digitally manipulate pictures. Retouching is widespread in the modern media. Sometimes this is to remove the odd spot or blemish, to smooth skin or add shine to hair, but in many cases the whole shape of people's bodies have been altered. Waists cinched in, breasts enlarged, legs lengthened, or muscles pumped up. A recent Ralph Lauren advert showed a model who had been retouched to the extent that her waist was smaller than her head. Indeed, it seems that some politicians are not immune to this vanity. The Minister may have seen the Conservative Party's new billboard featuring a picture of the Leader of the Opposition looking more than a little airbrushed. Now, Mr. Speaker, I know he wanted to present a new face of the Conservative Party, but I hadn't realised he meant it literally.
We don't want to let it give way.
We'll give way.
In intervening, I can definitely give another undertaking to my electorate that I do not change the photographs on my leaflets. But could one way of recapturing this issue would be to encourage people at a local level, much like my local newspaper, the Croydon Advertiser, which ran a competition about beauty and lifestyle and so on, based on real people, really grabbing back this issue to local people.
I think the Honourable Gentleman makes an excellent point, and indeed at a national level, something like Dove's campaign for real beauty would be another example of celebrating the diversity of beauty as we see it in everyday life. So why does this all matter? It matters because the images we see have an effect on how people feel about and behave toward their own bodies. It can be extremely serious. In November last year, a report entitled The Impact of Media Images on Body Image and Behaviours, a Summary of the Scientific Evidence, was written and signed by 45 leading academics, doctors and clinical psychologists from the UK, USA, Australia, Brazil, Spain and Ireland. The report is available on the Real Women campaign website, realwomen.org.uk. I'll summarise its findings, but I would very much encourage the Minister to read it in full. It states that the experience of negative thoughts and feelings about one's body and appearance is a powerful, in fact, the most potent, and consistent precursor of a whole range of unhealthy body-related behaviours. These include unhealthy dieting regimes and problematic eating behaviours such as starving, binging and purging, clinical eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia, cosmetic surgery, extreme exercising and unhealthy muscle-enhancing behaviours in boys and men, such as taking steroids or other supplements. It is also linked to depression, anxiety, sexual dissatisfaction and low self-esteem. The evidence also tells us that idealised media images have a detrimental effect on the clear majority of women and adolescent girls. There have been fewer studies carried out on men, but meta-analyses show that exposure to the muscular male ideal is also linked to greater body dissatisfaction. Hospital admissions for bulimia and anorexia among girls under 18 leapt by 47% last year, according to House of Commons figures. Media images are not the only factor responsible for this list of health problems, but they are a significant risk factor. It starts at an early age. One study of girls aged 5 to 7 found that girls had less body esteem and a greater desire for a thinner body after exposure to images of thin Barbie dolls compared with girls exposed to images of dolls with a healthy body size. People are not necessarily fully aware of the extent to which images are digitally altered. A poll of more than 1,000 women by Dove last October found that 42% of the women surveyed said they couldn't tell whether an image has been airbrushed or digitally enhanced. As I mentioned, Dove has used normal women as models in its adverts for the past 5 years as part of its very successful campaign for real beauty, which in itself proves that products can sell without the adverts having to conform to the super skinny beauty ideal. We need to change the culture that says in our society only thin is beautiful and nothing less than perfection will do. There's no magic wand we can wave to create this change overnight, but the Liberal Democrats' Real Women campaign is calling for a few simple steps to start the process by making images used in advertising more honest and to equip people to respond to them in a healthy and appropriate way. Firstly, we propose that in adverts aimed at adults, advertisers should be honest about the extent of digital retouching they have employed. Secondly, in adverts aimed at children, people should be presented realistically as they already actually look without digital retouching. And finally, the national curriculum should ensure that children receive education about media literacy and body image issues. The Advertising Standards Authority already has codes of conduct which regulate what can and cannot be put in adverts, and we are all used to seeing disclaimers on adverts to comply with those rules. For example, L'Oreal have been made to state on their shampoo adverts that Cheryl Cole is actually wearing hair extensions, and to admit that even Longoria is wearing false lashes in their mascara adverts. However, the ASA only act in response to complaints about specific adverts. The Minister may be aware that, in response to almost 1,000 complaints received as part of the Real Women campaign, the ASA recently banned an advert for Olay Definity anti-wrinkle products featuring Twiggy. The ASA upheld the complaint that the advert was misleading because it led viewers to believe that Twiggy's appearance was achieved using the product and not through digital alteration. However, they rejected the claim that the advert breached the requirement that all marketing communications should be prepared with a sense of responsibility to consumers and to society. Their report stated, in the context of an ad that featured a mature model likely to appeal to women of an older age group, the image was unlikely to have a negative impact on perceptions of body image among the target audience and was not socially irresponsible. They do not appear to have considered the scientific evidence, which shows that while young people may be particularly at risk, media images also cause body dissatisfaction and unhealthy behaviours in adult women. Rather than a piecemeal advert-by-advert approach, we need all adverts to be upfront about the perfected images they portray. Bringing honesty about retouching into advertising is not rocket science. The ASA should work with the advertising industry to come up with a suitable labelling system, perhaps similar to the traffic light system we see on food packaging, and amend the advertising codes to require adverts to display the retouching icon showing the level of retouching used in that ad. This would help consumers to distinguish between minor retouching, such as removing the odd blemish, and the extensive digital surgery that is increasingly common in adverts. As with the traffic light scheme, it might also change the behaviour of the advertisers, who may be reluctant to airbrush so heavily if consumers will know the extent of it. There is clear public support for a change to the advertising codes. A Comres poll in October for the YMCA, whose Healthy Bodies campaign is highlighting current concerns about body image, found that 77% of people think that airbrushed photographs should carry a health warning. The Dove poll I mentioned earlier found that 96% of women would like advertisers to be honest about the extent to which they airbrush or digitally retouch pictures and adverts. Mr. Speaker, children are especially vulnerable to body image pressure. The YMCA poll also found that 88% of people believe children to be under more pressure about their physical appearance than they were 20 years ago. This is backed up by research from Girl Guiding UK. Shockingly, their focus group heard that girls as young as 7 equated being attractive with being happy. Research they conducted in July among young women found that 50% of 16 to 21-year-olds would consider having surgery to change the way they look. Because children are more vulnerable, we already have guidelines which apply only to adverts aimed at them, such as Clause 7.2 of the BCAP Television Advertising Code, which rules that advertisements must avoid anything likely to encourage poor nutritional habits or an unhealthy lifestyle in children. Well, the evidence I've already outlined strongly suggests that airbrushing in advertising does just that. I hope the Minister will state in his response whether he agrees with me that the ASA should bring advertising companies together to form an agreement that images of people should not be digitally altered in adverts aimed at children. When the Liberal Democrats launched these proposals on airbrushing back in August, the Right Honourable Member for Camberwell and Peckham was quoted as saying, "We are happy to back this campaign," and I hope that his department agrees. Of course, we cannot protect children from these images forever, which is why we must also empower them to develop the resilience they need to think critically about media messages. The 45 experts to whom I've already referred agreed in their summary of evidence that training in media literacy to increase critical awareness of perfected media models and the harm they can do reduces the immediate negative effects of exposure, and more systematic, intensive interventions over days or weeks can significantly reduce one important risk factor: internalisation of the slender ideal. 50,000 people signed up to a body confidence petition on the Number 10 website last autumn, calling for the school curriculum to include lessons to help deal with body image issues. They were backed by Gok Wan, whose How to Look Good Naked TV series has been a breath of fresh air in giving women of all shapes and sizes more body confidence. In December, the Department for Children, Schools and Families published an independent report by Professor David Buckingham entitled The Impact of the Commercial World on Children's Wellbeing. It concluded that the department should set up a panel to look at how media literacy can be incorporated into the national curriculum, and I was very glad to hear that the Secretary of State for Children, Schools and Families agreed with that conclusion. I wonder if the Minister could give us an update today on what progress has been made so far on this. These steps that I've outlined are only a start, and they need to precipitate many more wide-reaching changes. It is not only advertisers who are at fault. The trend towards using increasingly skinny models is very worrying, and it is about time, frankly, that the recommendations of the Model Health Inquiry were implemented, such as at London Fashion Week next month, for models to have a health certificate signed off by an eating disorder specialist, in order to protect their own health and well-being as well as that of their audience. Fashion designers have a role to play too. The sample sizes of their clothes are so small that the editor of Vogue magazine recently admitted to retouching to make models look bigger, as the only models who fit into the clothes look so unhealthy.
We're not going to give way. I'm sorry to. I know she's trying to get as much in as possible. And her party colleague, Dee Ducey, on the London Assembly, has very much campaigned on London Fashion Week. Do you think it's time maybe the mayor, whether it was the previous mayor or the current mayor, actually really does put his foot down and decide that zero-size models are not acceptable at London Fashion Week? Well,
I think there's an excellent piece of work that has been done, and he rightly raises the work my colleague Dee Ducey has been doing on this, and it's looked at the evidence, it's come up with a set of proposals. It's probably not as simple as a crude BMI measure, because there are some very naturally slender girls who are models, but that's why a proper situation where the model goes to a doctor and gets a certificate is a sensible way to proceed, and I think it would be helpful if the mayor could actually implement this, and London Fashion Week is next month, so there may even yet be time for him to do so. The media must also take some responsibility for choosing to show such a narrow range of body shapes and indeed of ages. Curvy women and older women are too often airbrushed away as if they didn't exist, whether it's on entertainment programmes, reading the news, or in the fashion and beauty pages of magazines. The models and celebrities depicted in these media images are themselves often under considerable pressure to change their bodies through surgery or extreme dieting. In an interview with Sky News in December, Martine McCutcheon responded to the news about the Twiggy Olay advert, saying, "There was part of me that thought, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be airbrushed, maybe I should be the real woman. But the thing is, then the other women don't join in, and you look really awful compared to all the airbrushed women. So it gets to the point where you just think, well, if you can't beat them, join them." Most women look at Twiggy or Martine and see examples of strong and beautiful women. Yet even they are deemed not perfect enough just as they are. In fact, polls show that women and men both want to see more realistic images. This week's Grazia magazine features a picture of Sadie Frost, naked, unairbrushed and beautiful exactly as she is. She says, "I love my body because it works. It's given birth to 4 children, it's healthy, and like everyone's, has been through tough times. You don't have to have that perfect body, because that perfect body doesn't really exist. Be happy and healthy in your own skin. Wise words indeed. But media images are creating pressure that stops too many women and girls from being happy and healthy in their own skin, sometimes with disastrous consequences. The steps I've outlined today would be moves in the right direction to tackle this problem, and I look forward to hearing the government's response.